Hey everyone, I'm Mind, and this is set number 70501, Warrior Bike from the LEGO Ninjago Final Battle Wave. This set contains 2 minifigures, 210 pieces, and originally retailed for $19.99 in the US when it first came out back in 2013. This video is of course a part of my Ninjago throwback review series, so let me know in the comments which set you want to see a throwback review on next. It can be any set from 2011 to 2018, and while I don't have them all, I do have a lot of them, so let me know which set you want to see most in the comments below, and I might just select it for the next Ninjago throwback review. If you want to see which sets I've already done, I have a full playlist linked in the description below. But now, with all that said, let's get into this review. So here's the main build of the set, of course the actual warrior bike, and this was one of the vehicles designed for the Stone Warriors back in 2013. Unlike the snakes and skeletons that came before them, we didn't get a ton of vehicles. I think it was just this one in Garmadon, as well as a few small side builds and some other sets. But because these vehicles weren't as common, I feel like they didn't have enough of a chance to show off their identity. And I think that's a little bit of a shame, because what we have here going on with this set, as well as with Garmadon, I think is actually super cool. So let's go through it all. First, of course, the front of the bike, the standout feature is this giant tread piece. Now, what's cool about this tread piece is that it's in red. These pieces were not the most uncommon thing back in 2012, 2013, but when we saw them, it was mostly in black because that's a more realistic tread color. So something I like about this recolor is the willingness to go a little goofier with it, a little less realistic, because this is from an animated show, right? Using fun colors like this makes the build a lot more interesting. The idea of a bike that uses a tread too is a very creative idea, and I love the overall angle throughout this entire build. The way it uses some Technic pieces to go up at the front and then angle back down at the back. For a $20 set especially, I think that's a very impressive shape. Size-wise, this vehicle is also pretty huge for $20. Now, part of that's just a change in how LEGO approaches sets these days. Modern LEGO sets are focused a lot more on looks, while these older LEGO sets are focused on size and play. So even though the piece count is very similar to like a modern Ninjago set that would be $20, the modern sets are a lot smaller because they use a lot more tiny detailing pieces. While on this one, I mean, you can see the front of the bike right here is just one giant Technic beam. And sometimes that like size over design approach can look somewhat ugly, but I think in the case of this set, it really works. Like, yes, you do have a bunch of open technicals here, and yes, there's a bunch of studs on the top, but I feel like it's the right amount of detail. The somewhat open mechanical vibe I feel like fits the Stone Warriors, especially because in the show, like, these vehicles were put together very quickly. And there's enough detail here that I think it actually looks really cool. I love these spikes coming out the sides and on the top. These claws at the front are super cool. That's another piece in a very interesting color. I believe this piece is still around today, but we mostly get it in, like, gold. So red feels quite different. The lime green is definitely an interesting color choice, but I feel like it does help to break everything up. And it is a color that's seen on the Stone Warriors, just not very prominently. But that's the case on the vehicle too, right? It absolutely is used as an accent. However, visually, the coolest part of the build is definitely these two blades coming out the top. I'm pretty sure the intent here is to make this sort of look like a samurai helmet, and a very similar thing is done on the Garmadon set as well. But yeah, they use like inverted tentacle pieces with these large Ninjago blade pieces coming out the top, and of course these Ninjago blades are a very iconic part, still coming in sets today. They're sort of an indicator of a set being a Ninjago set. If they want to make a set look more Ninjago-like, you can add these blades to the side. But typically, we really only get these in gold. They've come in silver in a few sets, but gold is like the main color that's used for them. So seeing it in red instead in this set makes it look very cool, because I'm pretty sure it was only in that color in this set and Garmadon. But it's such an iconic part in other colors. I feel like this is ridiculously oversized too, but I mean that in the best way possible. It feels animated and fun. There's just such a striking silhouette to this vehicle. It does not feel generic in the slightest. Then there's this little rounded section behind the horns, and I think this is meant to look like the top of the samurai helmet if this is the horns. And behind that's the area where the minifigure is meant to attach. Unfortunately, there's not really room for them to sit down. I mean, you could sit them down if you wanted to, but then their butt would sort of be hanging off the back, so that doesn't look great. So the better option is definitely to stand them up instead, more like this. And I think that looks okay. I will say that's one of my critiques of the set, is I wish there was a more proper seating area, because this feels like a last-minute addition. The rest of the vehicle is so cool that it's not the end of the world, but I wish it felt like the minifigure fit on here a little more properly. Anyway, you can see there's like a little antenna piece right here to be a lever, and the minifigure can hold on to that. And then there's these 3 missiles on the side, as well as this Technic part that can be moved backwards. This is the main play feature in this set, and this play feature is awesome because it uses gravity to help you shoot out these missiles. We've got this 7-long Technic piece right here, and that just sits loosely in the build. However, it's not able to fall all the way down because this part right here gets in the way, and the fact that it's angled a little bit too makes sure that these missiles don't fall out either, because gravity's pulling them down this direction. But if you actually want to shoot these missiles out, you can. You pull back on this gray lever right here, and you can see that beam falls ever so slightly. It doesn't go too far because the missiles are still blocking it from like going all the way in, but then if you release the gray lever, it pushes back on the lowest missile and allows it to shoot out. Then the process can be repeated and the Technic beam just falls lower and lower. Once you've shot all 3 missiles, the beam has reached the bottom, so it's not going to like fall out or anything, but you could very easily remove it and reload it with the missiles that have just been shot out. I think it's super cool the way this is done, and I think it's honestly something that's missing in modern LEGO sets, because 2013 was a time before spring-loaded shooters and a time before stud shooters. So if designers wanted to have a shooting function in a build, they had to get creative with it. Now I think stud shooters are objectively a good thing, but it means you don't see this kind of stuff anymore, and that's a shame. If you're wondering how the lever is able to snap back into place, it's because of this rubber band right here. When you pull down on it, you stretch the rubber band out, so when you let go, it wants to snap back to where it was. Finally, at the very back of the build, we have two more tactic beams and these giant wheels coming off the sides. These wheels were used a lot back in the day. Power Miners had them, early Ninjago had them, Space Police 3 had them, and they're still being used in this set. I think they work perfectly fine. They give that cool evil vibe. I will say this back section's probably the weakest part of the set because it is just so flat and there's no detailing at all. I think the front of the build does that somewhat skeletal approach very well, but it maybe could have used a little more detailing back here. It was 2013 though, and this was a $20 set, so this is not the end of the world. It works perfectly fine. And yeah, that's about all there is to show for the Warrior bike. Of course, you can roll it around, and both the tread at the front and the wheels at the back can move. Because the back wheels are hard plastic and not rubber, depending on the kind of surface you're on, they may not roll super well and they might slide instead. But because of the shape of them, they do roll better than some other plastic wheels, so I've not had any issue with them. Overall, I think this is a super cool, very fun, very creative set. Especially for 2013, I think this holds up surprisingly well. Is it my favorite Ninjago set of all time? No, probably not. But I like this. This is a really nice $20 package. However, of course, that's not everything in this set. So now let's take a look at the one sort of side build and then the minifigures that it comes with. I say sort of side build because this is, I guess, technically a side build, but it's also a minifigure attachment. Jay comes with this, like, jetpack. And I mean, I think it looks alright. He's got two little swords to make it feel Ninjago-esque. And jetpacks, or I guess gliders, are a Jay thing, right? Jay was using a glider when Sensei Wu first found him. So that's a neat sort of callback to the show. However, for a brick build jetpack, this is not like the best I've seen. Again, it was 2013, so I can't be too judgmental. We got some moving parts here, like the swords can move up and down, and so can like these little thrusters. But yeah, I'm not crazy about this, it's fine. It connects to Jay on a little neck bracket. There's how it looks fully removed. It's a nice little bonus, it's better than nothing. But definitely a lot less interesting than the main build. Now properly moving on to the minifigures, here are the two that come in this set. We of course have Jay in his kimono robes, and we have a stone warrior. Jay of course has the neck bracket attached because it comes with that glider or jetpack which we just looked at, and I'm only mentioning that in case you skipped this part of the video, did not watch that. That's what's supposed to go there. Removing that though, let's first quickly talk about the minifigure's accessories. Jay comes with the lightning elemental blade, which the elemental blades were really cool pieces for the time. Like the actual new piece that was introduced here I think is awesome. Jay's is completely transparent blue, however it uses less transparent blue as you get to the top, so it creates this very cool gradient effect. And then there is an opaque color sort of dual molded into the center right there. So while this piece did go on to be reused plenty of times just as detailing in other sets, for the original purpose of it being a weapon in these sets, I think it's awesome. And Jay probably does have one of the cooler looking ones. The hilts unfortunately do not have the cool dragon face that they had in the show, but luckily we did get dragon hilts in 2019, so if you wanted to customize these to use those instead, it's still not perfect, but it looks a lot closer. And then the Stone Warrior comes with two swords. One's a standard black katana, the other's like this scimitar. Neither of those were new for this set, but they're cool to get. And the scimitars were like the iconic weapon for the Stone Warriors, so it's neat to get here, and I think it's kind of fun that he has two different weapons instead of two of the same one. With those removed though, here's a better look at just the minifigures. Starting with Jay, I think the kimono suits are very good, especially for the time. If we're looking at like all the ninja suits that do the ninja's main color and black, I do think I prefer both Skybound and Possession to kimono. The kimono suits though were the first to do it, and I think they did a pretty good job. The weirdest part about them is the way they reused the ZX hoods exactly, including like the silver or gold at the top. And I think that works to mixed effect. On like Cole, for example, I don't think it looks great. But on Jay specifically, I think the silver adds a very nice touch to everything. It doesn't feel too distracting from the other colors. This was also the first introduction of the kimono symbols, which went on to be reused on plenty of other suits. You can see it on the torso right here. That's the same symbol that's used on their hoods in like Tournament, for example. But the classic symbols are still on the back here. Jay has like the lightning octopus. And if I take the hood piece off, it's of course still Jay's 2011 face. He did not update this until 2016, but it worked for the time. This was the only set this minifigure came in, so it was nice that he was so accessible coming in a $20 set. I like that this guy's here. And then this is just the most generic, most iconic Stone Army Warrior. Stone Warriors are not my favorite Ninjago villains, but I do think this guy looks really good. The helmet especially is great. They took the Samurai X helmet and just improved upon it. Of course, it's the same base helmet piece, but then he's got these awesome new red horns on the top. And the mouth guard too is so much more interesting than the Samurai X mouth guard. I especially love the printing on it, just like these little bits of silver. That's a very cool touch. The armor piece was also new for this wave. This has gone on to be reused plenty of times. For example, last year in Ninjago, Lord Garmadon used it. But yeah, this was the first introduction here in red, and I love how bulky it makes the minifigures look. The different versions of the Stone Warriors did get different colored face paint, so in the case of this guy, it's red. And then, of course, they've got that red samurai armor and then that green overlord symbol in the center, with some nice metallic silver detailing, too. Turning him around, there's a look at his back torso print, lots more of that silver there. Very nice leg printing, too. It transitions quite well from the torso. So especially when he's all armored up with the helmet on and everything, I think this minifigure's great. That helmet is by far the highlight, though. And so, what are my thoughts on the set overall? I think this set's really solid, honestly. It does unfortunately suffer for being maybe the least interesting set of the wave because it's a lower tier villain vehicle. This was a very small wave, so the other things were like the most iconic location of the season, the Golden Dragon, the big villain vehicle, and then we had the little Mech, which was cheaper than this. Oh, and Cole's Earth Driller too. So I think it sort of left this set as the least interesting one. That being said, I don't think that makes it bad. I think the actual model here is very fun, creative especially for the time. It's got such a striking silhouette, and that's amazing to see, and it's a good value for the original price too. Now that's the original price. Of course, this set came out 12 years ago, so you're not going to find it for that price today. Aftermarket seems to really vary. I think I got this for like 25. It wasn't too bad. Might have been 30. So I guess we come to the question of would I recommend this set? I would say you definitely don't need it, but if you're a fan of Jay or you're a fan of just like fun and unique villain vehicles, it's a fun one to pick up. But if you're a little more limited in your purchasing power, there's definitely more interesting sets out there. Like, I definitely think I prefer Garmadon to this one if you want a Stone Warrior set. But if you are interested in the set already and you are on the fence, I would say, yeah, definitely pick it up. It is one that I really like. Its biggest flaws are just that other sets are more interesting, I guess. It doesn't make this set bad by any means. But yeah, for $20, especially at the time, this is a pretty great value. I'm quite happy with this set, and I'm glad to finally have it in my collection. But of course, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of this set in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to my channel if you're new, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, let me know in the comments which set do you want to see a throwback review on next. But as for this one, I think that's about all I have to say, so thanks for watching everybody, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!